I had spent 6 months working tirelessly, clocking in extra hours, pushing beyond my limits. But when I finally asked about my overtime pay, my boss smirked and said, "You really think I'm going to pay you?" Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had sacrificed weekends, stayed late every night, and even missed my best friend's wedding just to meet deadlines. And now, after months of empty promises, I was being mocked for expecting what I had rightfully earned. My name is Emily Carter, and at 27, I had landed what I thought was my dream job at Titan Corp, one of the biggest marketing firms in the city. The role was intense, but I was ambitious. I wanted to prove myself. From the very first month, I noticed something odd. Overtime wasn't automatically calculated into my paycheck. "Don't worry," my boss, Richard Moore, had reassured me, flashing his expensive Rolex. "It'll all balance out. Just keep giving your best, and we'll take care of you." I was naive enough to believe him. At first, I didn't mind. I wanted to show I was a team player. If that meant putting in a few extra hours here and there, fine. But soon, those few extra hours became mandatory late nights and weekends. I'd walk into the office at 8 a.m. and wouldn't leave until 11 p.m. My social life? Gone. My personal time? Non-existent. Whenever I asked about my overtime, Richard had a new excuse. "Next payroll cycle, don't worry. The finance department is working on adjustments. It's just a small delay, hang tight." But now, 6 months in, I was done waiting. That afternoon, I walked into Richard's office, took a deep breath, and asked, "Richard, I've worked over 500 extra hours. I need to discuss my overtime pay." He looked up from his phone, eyebrows raised. Then he laughed. "You need to discuss what?" he scoffed. "Emily, the company has given you so much. Experience, mentorship, a strong resume. And now, you want more?" I clenched my fists. "I don't want more. I want what I've earned." Richard leaned back in his chair, studying me with the arrogance of a man who believed he was untouchable. "Listen, sweetheart, Titan Corp is a place where people prove themselves. If you don't want to put in the effort, I can always find someone else who will." My stomach twisted. Was he serious? "If you don't like it here," he continued, voice dripping with condescension, "you can leave. But don't expect a glowing recommendation. In fact, I'll personally make sure no company in this industry touches your resume." I felt my blood turn cold. This wasn't just about money anymore. Richard wasn't just robbing me. He was trying to destroy my entire career. And that's when I knew I wasn't going to let him win. I could have walked away. I could have swallowed my pride, accepted the loss, and moved on. But Richard Moore didn't just steal my overtime pay. He made it his mission to humiliate me, to make sure I would never work in this industry again. And that was a mistake. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. My mind raced. Was this how things worked? You give everything to a company and in return they strip you of your dignity, your money, and your future? I refused to accept that. But for now, I needed to stay calm. "Understood," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "I appreciate the opportunity." Richard smirked, satisfied. "That's the spirit." But inside, I was already planning my next move. As I left Richard's office, my mind was spinning. I knew my overtime wages were stolen, but what if I wasn't the only one? I pulled up my email and scrolled through my messages. Over the past few months, I had seen whispers among my coworkers, jokes about working late for experience pay, about bonuses that never materialized. At the time, I thought it was normal office banter. Now, I realized it was something much worse. I sent a few casual texts to trusted colleagues. Me, "Hey, random question, have you ever been paid for your overtime?" Coworker 1, "Lol. Good one. Nope. Moore says we should be grateful." Coworker 2, "Girl, if you figure out how to get that money, let me know. I'm owed thousands." Coworker 3, "Wait. I just checked my pay stubs. Holy crap, this is theft." A knot formed in my stomach. It wasn't just me. Richard wasn't just a greedy boss. He was running a systematic wage theft operation. The next morning, I walked into the office, acting normal. No one could know what I was planning. But Richard wasn't done with me yet. Before lunch, an email from HR popped up in my inbox. Subject, urgent, employment review. I clicked it, my heart pounding. Effective immediately, your performance is under review due to multiple complaints regarding work ethic and team collaboration. Your access to company accounts will be restricted until further notice. Please meet with HR at 3 p.m. I felt my stomach drop. Complaints? I knew what this was. Richard was trying to discredit me. He wasn't satisfied with stealing my money. He wanted to crush me completely. Beneath the email was a CC list. HR Director Richard Moore. Every executive in the company. He wanted to make sure that no one would ever take my side. But he had underestimated me. I calmly closed the email and picked up my phone, dialing, "Hello? Hi, this is Emily Carter. I'd like to report a case of wage theft at Titan Corp." Let the real battle begin. Richard Moore thought he had won. He thought he could erase me with a single email, cut me off from the industry, and move on like nothing ever happened. But what he didn't know, I had just begun to fight. I sat at my desk, staring at the email, feeling the white-hot rage simmering beneath my skin. Every fiber of my being wanted to storm into Richard's office, call him out in front of everyone, demand justice. But that's exactly what he wanted me to do. No, if I was going to take him down, I had to be smarter than that. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking as I calmly logged into the company's payroll system. Richard had already revoked some of my access, but he had underestimated how much information I had already saved. I scanned through files, searching for discrepancies. It didn't take long. Hundreds of hours of unpaid overtime logged under multiple employees. Payroll adjustments marked as performance deductions with no justification. A spreadsheet labeled efficiency program showing salary reductions disguised as cost-cutting incentives. Richard had built an empire on stealing from his employees. And I had the receipts. My hands trembled not from fear, but from pure adrenaline. I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to burn his empire to the ground. I grabbed my phone and texted my most trusted colleagues. Meet me at lunch. Bring your pay stubs. At noon, we gathered in a quiet cafe across the street. 5 of us, all victims. Sarah, an account manager, showed me her documents first. I worked an extra 150 hours last quarter, not a single penny paid. Jake, a marketing assistant, frowned. I was promised a year-end bonus. Turns out it was reallocated to company development. One by one, they shared their experiences, each one more infuriating than the last. By the time they finished, we were no longer just disgruntled employees. We were a team on a mission. Just as we were about to leave, my phone buzzed. New email. Immediate termination notice. I stared at the subject line. I clicked it open. Effective immediately. Your employment at Titan Corp is terminated due to insubordination, violation of company policies, and unauthorized access to company data. Please vacate the premises by the end of the day. Security has been notified. I clenched my jaw. That bastard. Richard knew I had something on him. He was trying to silence me before I could act. What he didn't know? He had just given me complete freedom to go nuclear. I turned to my team. If we're going to do this, we have to do it right. Step 1. The legal strike. We filed a formal complaint with the labor board, submitting every piece of evidence we had. Wage theft, falsified payroll records, illegal contract breaches. It was all there. Step 2. The media bombshell. Sarah's husband worked as a journalist. Within hours, we had an anonymous exposé lined up. The headline? Titan Corp's dirty secret, the CEO who stole from his own employees. Step 3. The employee rebellion. By the end of the day, over 30 employees had joined us, each with their own horror story. Richard's empire wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. Breaking news. Major corporate wage theft scandal rocks Titan Corp. Richard's face was plastered all over the internet. Employees were leaking internal emails, screenshots, voicemails. By noon, the company's biggest client pulled out. By 3 p.m., the stock price plummeted. By 6 p.m., Richard was on an emergency Zoom call with the board. And by 8 p.m., security escorted him out of the building. Fired, publicly humiliated, and under federal investigation. I watched the footage on my phone. Richard, face pale, walking out of Titan Corp with nothing but a box of his belongings. I couldn't help but smirk. Then my phone buzzed. Incoming call, unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello? A deep voice responded. Emily Carter? Yes? I'm calling from Summit Global. We've been following your situation closely. We'd like to offer you a position on our executive team. Are you available for a meeting tomorrow? I grinned. Yes, I'm available. Revenge wasn't just about taking Richard down. It was about rising higher than he ever could. Richard Moore was finished. His empire was in ruins, his reputation shattered. But for me, This wasn't just about taking him down, this was about making sure he never had the chance to rise again. I arrived at Summit Global's headquarters the next morning, my heart racing. The executive who had called me Daniel Reeves greeted me with a firm handshake. "Emily, we've been watching everything unfold," he said, motioning for me to sit. "And frankly, we're impressed. Not just by your work, but by your ability to dismantle corruption." I smirked. I didn't plan for it to be this dramatic. Daniel chuckled. "Well, that drama exposed one of our biggest competitors. And now we want you on our team." My breath caught. This wasn't just a job offer. This was an opportunity for complete redemption. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. New email. Class action lawsuit filed against Titan Corp. I clicked it open. Over 50 former employees have filed a joint lawsuit against Titan Corp and Richard Moore for systematic wage theft. Damages are estimated in the millions. I grinned. Richard's nightmare had only just begun. Meanwhile, across the city, Richard sat in his penthouse apartment, watching his life crumble in real time. News anchor Titan Corp CEO Richard Moore has been accused of widespread labor violations. The fallout has led to mass employee resignations and lawsuits. Stock price down 75%. Social media, Titan Corp scandal trending #1 worldwide. Richard's hands clenched into fists. This couldn't be happening. His phone rang. It was his lawyer, Mark Hastings. "Richard, we have a serious problem." "No kidding, Mark. Tell me something I don't know." "The board is moving to cut all ties with you. They're putting the entire scandal on your shoulders." Richard's blood ran cold. "They can't do that. They already have." By the end of the day, Titan Corp filed an internal motion to permanently blacklist Richard from any future employment within the industry. The SEC opened an investigation into financial misconduct. And then, the biggest blow of all. New email. Due to multiple legal actions and financial losses, Titan Corp is officially filing for bankruptcy. Richard's empire was gone, his assets were frozen, and within 24 hours his home, his cars, his lavish lifestyle, everything was stripped away. A week later, I walked into my new office at Summit Global, overlooking the city skyline. "Incoming call, unknown number," I answered, expecting another reporter. Instead, I heard a familiar voice, shaky, desperate. "Richard, Emily? I need your help." I nearly laughed out loud. I need a job. I have nothing left." I let his words hang in the air, savoring every second. Then with the same smirk he had once given me, I replied, "You really think I'm gonna help you?" Click. Justice wasn't just served, it was poetic. Richard Moore had spent years stepping on people, stealing from them, crushing them under his arrogance. He thought he was invincible, but now he had lost everything. His power, his money, his name, and the irony, he had done it all to himself. As I placed my phone down after his desperate call, I couldn't help but smile. The same man who had mocked me, belittled me, and tried to destroy my career was now begging for my help. But Richard's downfall wasn't just personal, it was public, irreversible, and completely humiliating. In the weeks following Titan Corp's demise, the scandal exploded. Breaking news. SEC expands investigation into Titan Corp fraud. Former CEO Richard Moore facing criminal charges for wage theft and tax evasion. The more investigators dug, the worse it got. Millions in business expenses were actually personal luxuries, yachts, private jets, 5-star vacations. Titan Corp had falsified financial reports for years, dodging taxes. Over 50 employees filed lawsuits, demanding millions in unpaid wages. The board of directors publicly blamed Richard for everything, distancing themselves as fast as they could. Investors pulled out. The company's last remaining clients terminated their contracts. Titan Corp's stock price plummeted to zero. Within a month, the company officially declared bankruptcy. Richard wasn't just disgraced, he was being erased. At Summit Global, my story had turned me into something of a corporate legend. "You exposed one of the biggest scandals in the industry," my new boss, Daniel Reeves, said. "That's not just impressive, it's invaluable." Not only was I hired, but I was offered a leadership role. Vice President of Corporate Ethics and Employee Rights, a position created just for me. I had gone from an exploited employee to an industry leader. And Richard, he was still falling. Even as his empire crumbled, Richard refused to accept defeat. At first, he hired a high-powered legal team to try and fight the allegations. But there was too much evidence. The lawsuits piled up. The investigations intensified. With no options left, he made a desperate move. He tried to liquidate his assets and flee the country, but the government was one step ahead. Breaking news: ex-Titan CEO Richard Moore arrested, attempting to flee the country. Richard Moore indicted on multiple fraud charges, trial set for next month. I read the headline over my morning coffee, letting out a small chuckle. He really thought he could just walk away? Not this time. Months later, I was walking through downtown when I saw a familiar figure. At first, I almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the confident, arrogant CEO in his tailored suits. Instead, he wore an oversized coat, his hair unkempt, his face hollow from stress. He wasn't walking with purpose anymore. He was dragging himself, a man completely defeated. For a moment, our eyes met. His expression, a mix of recognition, shame, and something else. Desperation. He hesitated, as if debating whether to say something. Then, with visible reluctance, he took a step toward me. "Emily," he said, his voice hoarse. I raised an eyebrow. "Richard, I need help." His voice cracked. "I lost everything." I tilted my head. "You don't say." He exhaled shakily. "Listen, I know I wasn't the best boss, but I just need something small, a recommendation maybe. I just need one company to take me back." He was pleading. The same man who had mocked me for asking for my wages, the same man who had laughed in my face while ruining my career. Now, he was standing in front of me, begging. For a brief second, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered everything he had done. I let the silence stretch, watching him squirm. Then, I leaned in slightly, lowered my voice, and said, "You really think I'm going to help you?" His face fell completely. I gave him a smile, polite, detached, victorious. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. No anger, no dramatic speeches, because I didn't need to say anything. I had already won. Breaking news: former Titan Corp CEO sentenced to 15 years for fraud and tax evasion. As I sipped my coffee, I watched the news coverage of Richard being led away in handcuffs, his face pale, his eyes empty. The man who once thought he controlled my future no longer had one of his own. Revenge wasn't just about taking him down. It was about proving I never needed him to succeed. And in that moment, I knew. I had won more than justice. I had reclaimed my power. Some people say revenge isn't worth it, that success is the best revenge. But let me tell you, watching Richard Moore's entire empire collapse under the weight of his own greed, that was satisfying in a way I never imagined. I sat in my new office at Summit Global, staring at the city skyline. The same city where, just a year ago, I had been exploited, belittled, and discarded by a man who thought he was untouchable. Now, I was sitting in a corner office, leading a division dedicated to protecting employees from corporate abuse. It was poetic, really. But even as I moved forward, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I had come. Breaking news: Richard Moore found guilty on all charges, sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The headline flashed across my screen, but I barely reacted. I had already made peace with the fact that Richard was finished. His fortune? Gone. His reputation? Destroyed. His name? A cautionary tale in business schools. Titan Corp had crumbled into dust, its remaining assets liquidated to pay off lawsuits. Former employees had finally received their stolen wages, and new regulations were being introduced to prevent similar abuse in the industry. The impact of the scandal went beyond Richard, it changed the industry. And I had been the one to light the match. One afternoon, I received an email from a university professor. Subject: case study on corporate corruption. Interview request. I opened it, eyebrows raised. "Dear Miss Carter, your story has become a pivotal case study in business ethics courses nationwide. We would love to invite you to speak at our upcoming seminar on corporate accountability." I let out a soft laugh. My downfall had become my legacy. I agreed to the interview. And before long, my inbox was flooded with speaking invitations, book deal offers, and even a documentary proposal. I never set out to be a symbol. I had just wanted justice. But now I had a platform to make real change. A few months later, I received one last unexpected message. Subject: request for correspondence, Richard Moore. I stared at the screen, debating whether to open it. After a long pause, I clicked. "Emily, I know I don't deserve your time, but I had to try. Prison is different than I imagined. I've lost everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to ask, was I really that terrible? Did I deserve all of this?" I exhaled sharply. This man had stolen from me, tried to ruin my career, laughed in my face, and now, from behind bars, he was searching for validation, for absolution. I closed the email without responding, because the truth was, I didn't care what he thought anymore. People always say success is the best revenge, but for me, revenge wasn't just about winning. It was about proving that he never had power over me to begin with. I didn't need Richard Moore's acknowledgement. I didn't need his apology. I had already won, and that was enough. Revenge wasn't just about making Richard Moore pay for what he did. It was about proving that no matter how much power someone thinks they have, the truth will always catch up to them. I had won. But as I sat in my office overlooking the city skyline, I realized this victory wasn't just mine. After Titan Corp's collapse, something incredible happened. Other employees, not just from Titan, but from companies across the industry, started coming forward. Reports of wage theft skyrocketed. New labor laws were passed to protect workers. Executives at other companies were being investigated for similar crimes. One scandal had turned into a movement. I started receiving messages from people I had never met. Your story gave me the courage to stand up to my own toxic workplace. Because of what you did, my company changed its policies. You proved that we don't have to stay silent. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about Richard. This was bigger than me. As for Richard, after his sentencing, he disappeared from the public eye. His name, once feared in the corporate world, was now nothing more than a footnote in a cautionary tale. I never heard from him again, and I never cared to. Looking back, I realized this journey had taught me more than I ever imagined. Lesson number 1. Power is an illusion. People like Richard Moore thrive on fear. They convince you that they're untouchable, but in reality, they're only as strong as the silence of those around them. Lesson number 2. The best revenge isn't just winning, it's making sure no one else suffers like you did. I didn't just take Richard down. I helped change an industry. Lesson number 3. Never underestimate your own power. I once thought I was just an employee, powerless against the system. I was wrong. One voice can start a revolution. My story wasn't just a personal victory, it was a new beginning. I had spent years working for others. Now I was ready for something bigger. So I did the one thing Richard Moore never saw coming. I launched my own company, one that put employees first, one that valued people over profits, one that Richard could never have built because he never understood true leadership. As I stood in my new office, I knew this was just the beginning. If someone tries to take everything from you, make sure they lose even more. Power is temporary, but integrity lasts forever. No matter how dark things seem, the truth always comes to light. The best revenge isn't just watching them fall, it's making sure you rise even higher.